To all the non-believers, 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 non-believers. I'm making.
What's good, y'all? This is Jay Varsity, and we are back with another episode of NBA Talk. This is episode 155, and I'm giving my opinion on all the trade transactions that happened at the trade deadline yesterday, and whether it benefits or regresses teams at this point moving forward. So we're gonna go over all the transactions, and like I said, let's see if teams got better or worse. We're starting off with the big headline trade. I know everybody's talking about it. It finally happened. The Brooklyn Nets and the Philadelphia 76ers have finally pulled the trigger, and this is the official trade. James Harden and Paul Millsap are going to the Philadelphia 76ers in exchange for Ben Simmons, Seth Curry, Andre Drummond, and 2 first-round picks. Now, in my opinion, I am very shocked that Seth Curry was involved in this deal. I thought I really thought Daryl Morey would be very hesitant on giving up Seth Curry, but I guess he really just loves James Harden at that point because that's a really good shooter that you're giving to the Brooklyn Nets right now. And Andre Drummond, Andre Drummond has been a hit or miss. He's been playing pretty well in his time in Philly. So I think his time in Brooklyn will be he'll be a lot more productive in a way on the rebounding department because that's where I think Brooklyn has been really slacking. And again, you didn't have to give up Patty Mills, which is if you're a Brooklyn fan, that's a huge W if you put in that aspect because Philly was really fighting to get Patty Mills. So if you would have had to give up Patty Mills, I think I would have said you're pretty much almost the same. But then now instead of James Harden, you have Ben Simmons. But let me give in the aspect of Philly's standpoint right now. When you have Philadelphia and you have Joel Embiid playing at an MVP type level, he looks like he could be the lead candidate for MVP. You're giving him a guy like James Harden, and I just want you to take into consideration. Don't take what ESPN is saying right now because it's funny how ESPN talks about James Harden. Oh, when can he get back to being the James Harden we used to, and all sort of stuff. And they never questioned whether James Harden was never going to be the same again. But the moment this trade happened, I swear you might not think it. They did a whole switch up on James Harden. It's like now they think that he's never going to be that James Harden again. Philly's getting a washed James Harden and all sort of stuff. This is a James Harden who led the league in scoring just about 3 years ago. He led the league in scoring what for consecutive years just 3 years ago, and his down year, quote unquote down year, he's averaging 22 and 10 assists. This is a down year for James Harden. Uh, I made jokes thinking that these new rules were gonna stop him from going to the free throw line, but James Harden's been damn near perfectly fine. And yes, the hamstring has been shown to be bothering him and all that, but it's not like James Harden is not James Harden. He's still a playmaker. Still an elite perimeter shooter. It's like you can't say that Philly didn't gain something with James Harden that they are just saying, oh, Brooklyn, 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 that they benefited all from this trade. Philly benefited also. You're putting a guy like James Harden to pair up with a big man that he's never played with before in Joel Embiid. And now your whole offense is going to look significantly different because when you have guys like Danny Green, you have guys like Tyrese Maxey, Martise Thybulle, Tobias Harris, you got Korg Maz, you're gonna have those, and then you add a veteran like Paul Millsap to come off the bench. Your your offense is gonna look a lot smoother because that pick and roll, you can either run a pick and roll or pick and pop, and it's like you literally got to decide what are you going to live with because you're not going to stop both Joel Embiid and James Harden at the exact same time. You're just not. It, I believe Doc Rivers. I believe Doc Rivers is going to have a hell of a time figuring out the offense with these two players, and it's going to just open the floor. gonna open the floor. Joel Embiid to me is not gonna see as many double teams as he has right now, and he's been doing a hell of a job maintaining, not handling those double teams as of right now. But with James Harden, you add that element, it just makes Joel Embiid that much more unguardable. Now, at the end of the day, we can't decide who won the trade because we need to see all these players. We need to see all these players on the floor. We need to see all these. We need to see actual results on what we get. Now, in talks of Brooklyn standpoint, Brooklyn did also benefit. Like I mentioned with Andre Drummond, you benefit by getting more rebounding and more size in your department. You get a guy like Seth Curry, who's an elite shooter. And again, you didn't have to give up Patty Mills. You get a guy in Ben Simmons who's a great perimeter defender. He could guard one. He could arguably guard 1 through 5. But the mental aspect is where things come into play. Now, whether people think it's legit or not, if he really has this sort of mental stress that he's been going through, but at the end of the day, if he's really eager to get back to playing basketball, we need to see how much it applies when he's actually on the floor. Because now Brooklyn has to come up with a whole new system. You can't run the same system that you were running with James Harden with Ben Simmons. For one, Ben Simmons is not the shooter that James Harden is. Two, and most importantly, he's not going as much as I thought it could be applied. He can't run in a half court set. Well, my suggestion would be you need to try to play fast and not allow teams to get into a half court defense. You need to play quick. You need to apply a lot of pick and rolls. Let Ben Simmons have the ball in transition on fast breaks. Brooklyn needs to be within the top 3 in fast break points from this point going forward in the rest of the season. They just have to be. Now, we're not going to get into a whole Kyrie situation because that's a whole other thing that might not even be within their control. And also Kevin Durant's health and everything. But this is also going to be a big adjustment on Steve Nash. Steve Nash has got quite a bit of work to do because he's going to have to really imply that 7 seconds or less offense in order for this Ben Simmons fit to work. It should, in one way, it should work because Ben Simmons now is surrounded by more shooters than he's ever been in his whole career. But it is also, how will it apply in the postseason? You only have 25 games in order to try to get these guys in a rhythm and form a kind of chemistry in order to be ready for the postseason. Which that also leads me to say this is a great building point towards next season, because now you don't have those distractions that you had when you were trying to deal with James Harden. Both teams benefit in that way. They don't have the big distractions that they had they don't have the big distractions that they had all season that is just ruining the locker room and is just distracting everybody, including the fans. Now you could just solely focus on playing basketball. So that's just my standpoint on that. To me, if I had to give a grade on both of these, I would say give Philly an A-. I'm just gonna say A because I'm a little bit disappointed that they let go of Seth Curry. I would also give a B plus to close to an A for Brooklyn also, because they didn't have to give up Patty Mills, and they ended up getting 2 first-round picks instead of giving up 2 first-round picks. So that to me, that right there, that just shows how tricky this deal was, and you can see how much negotiating these two organizations must have had, because they were desperately trying to get rid of the distractions within their teams. And now we just gotta see it all apply on the floor. The next deal let's talk about right now is hold on one second. The Dallas Mavericks and the Washington Wizards. We got Spencer Dinwiddie and Davis Bertans going to the Dallas Mavericks in exchange for Kristaps Porzingis and a second round pick. Now, I've said what I said about the Dallas Mavericks in the previous episode, and I stand by it. But Kristaps Porzingis to me has been a big bust because he just can't stay healthy. Now, always wish for the best. Hopefully that he proves to be um, a more towards building point for the Washington Wizards because they got something nice going on in Washington right now. Like I'm not kidding when I say that. Kyle Kuzma has really changed completely from how he was last season when he played with the Lakers. He's a whole different player. He's really developed his all-around game. Uh, you could see it from how much freedom he has to really play his own game. And same thing with Kentavious Caldwell Pope. You got Rui Hachimura. You got you have and then when you have a guy like Bradley Beal, who obviously is going to be out for the rest of the year, but then you're going to have him back. You're going to have all these pieces back. You add a guy like Kristaps Porzingis, and hopefully with that he can maintain his health, Washington can make some noise next year. They really can make some noise. They're not somebody to be slept on. And when it comes to Dallas, you got a guy like Spencer Dinwiddie who is very productive. He could be very productive. And then you got Davis Bertans, another shooter for Dallas. You're just opening up the floor for Luka Doncic. You're just opening up the floor for Luka Doncic, who just put up 50 last night against the Clippers. Man, he loves bullying the Clippers. But you just now is you're determining to surround Luka with nothing but shooters, and you gave him another guy who could handle the ball, and you're not giving Luka a lot of ball handling responsibility because that's what Spencer Dinwiddie can do. He could provide ball handling responsibility so that it's not Luka, 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 Luka. So I like this move. It's a very surprising move. I didn't expect a move like that to happen. So I give the Dallas Mavericks I give the Dallas Mavericks a B plus, and for Washington, I will give them I'll give them a C as of right now because we don't know how much this is gonna affect when it comes to Porzingis' health because we still need to see more consistency from Kristaps Porzingis. The next deal I want to get into is the San Antonio Spurs and the Toronto Raptors. The San Antonio Spurs received Goran Dragic and a protected 2022 first round pick, and the Toronto Raptors received Thaddeus Young, Drew Eubanks, and a 2022 second round pick via Detroit. Now, this is one of those odd deals, and I'm not very sure what either team plans to do moving forward because how does Toronto feel that this benefits them by getting Thaddeus Young and Drew Eubanks when really they should be somewhat solid at the power forward position, or they planning to move somebody to another position, maybe Pascal Siakam, I don't know, but I don't know how that's supposed to work because I haven't really been keeping track when it comes to Toronto. So no, not saying that I don't think Toronto is good, but I just haven't really been following them. And when it comes to San Antonio Spurs, I don't understand why. Also, with this move, they're also planning on buying out Goran Dragic, making him a free agent. So the buyout market is gonna be very decent, but I'm just not sure why make this move for a guy like Goran Dragic when you're just gonna buy him out anyway. So both these deals, I'm gonna have to give a C minus. So because quite frankly, I'm just not understanding why these moves took place. The next deal I want to talk about, we had a 4-team deal yesterday. We had the Detroit Pistons, the Los Angeles Clippers, the Sacramento Kings, and the Milwaukee Bucks involved in this transaction. The Detroit Pistons receive Marvin Bagley III. The Los Angeles Clippers receive Rodney Hood, and Sammy Ojeleye. The Sacramento Kings get Dante DiVincenzo, Josh Jackson, and Trey Lyles. And the Milwaukee Bucks receive Serge Ibaka and 2 future second-round picks in cash. How did the Milwaukee Bucks end up with Serge Ibaka? That is beyond me. How did they end up getting somewhat better? And their roster is deep. The Milwaukee Bucks, their roster is deep, but I really do believe that those trading Dante DiVincenzo, that I'm really iffy on that. I'm really iffy on that because Dante DiVincenzo has proven through this season to be a very key element in this in the Milwaukee system, and he really does spread the floor with Giannis and Chris Middleton. And I don't, I that really does puzzle me why they gave up Dante DiVincenzo, and they also let go of Rodney Hood and Sammy Ojeleye. Those were two guys that could knock down perimeter shots, and Rodney Hood was another good shot creator. Even though his production has dipped down over the years, he could still have those moments where he could be very productive. It's like, I don't know, maybe they just want to get more defensive firepower to come into the postseason, because that's what really led them to the championship last year was their defense. In their offense, obviously you have Giannis, Chris Middleton, Drew Holiday. You got guys like Bobby Portis, Pat Connaughton. Uh, you still have Grayson Allen. You got offensive weapons, but then it's like you gave up a good 3-point shooter in Dante DiVincenzo. So I think that's just my only bad takeaway when it comes to Milwaukee. Now the Sacramento Kings, you got rid of Marvin Bagley, and and so that's been a headache for them because obviously with his family talking about they wanted him to be traded, and you finally got it done. You you received Dante DiVincenzo and Josh Jackson, who's been thrown around the league quite a bit. It's been kind of disappointed to see how Josh Jackson has just been tossed around in trade packages and all that. So hopefully this stint in Sacramento, hopefully Josh Jackson makes a turnaround because that's just been really disappointing. With the Clippers receiving Rodney Hood and Sammy Ojeleye, with the additions also of Norman Powell and Robert Covington, this Clippers team is getting very, very loaded. They're getting very, very loaded. I'm not even gonna lie. They're getting very loaded, and it's just the fact that their two stars are not playing so far this season. Imagine if these two were playing right now. We would be talking about that the Clippers are the scariest team in the league right now. That's just my take on it. And the Detroit Pistons, you got quite a young foundation that you're building right now. You added Marvin Bagley with Cade Cunningham. You have Killian Hayes. You have plenty of young pieces, and you have quite a few veteran pieces, and you still have Jeremy Grant. You still have Jeremy Grant also. So you got quite a decent roster to build around for the future. So for the Detroit Pistons, maybe basketball is not dead yet in Detroit. Maybe it's not going to build up anything great for right now, but I would say that you should look forward to next season because because of this move, you're going to start with a clean slate and you're going to have a blueprint for what you're going to build towards. So I like the direction that Detroit is taking. Now, for Detroit, I'm gonna give their addition. I'm gonna give them a B plus because I have to see Marvin Bagley what he does for Detroit moving forward. For the Clippers, I'm gonna give them an A because Sammy Ojeleye, who's a great perimeter defender, and Rodney Hood, who's another great shot creator. That's you can't go wrong with either one of those. Sacramento Kings, I'm gonna give them somewhat of a B plus, and the Milwaukee Bucks, I'm giving them an A. because you come out with Serge Ibaka in this deal, and when you have that situation with Brook Lopez going on, your your depth is not completely compromised, even though you lost quite a few key pieces since the offseason, but you're still potent enough to be a huge threat in the Eastern Conference. It's That's a win in my book. So I'm giving them an A on this one. Now, the next deal I want to talk about, it also involves the Sacramento Kings, but and this one just feels really strange to me. In this deal, the Indiana Pacers send off Domantas Sabonis, Jeremy Lamb, Justin Holiday, and a protected 2023 second round pick. And in return, they received Tyrese Halliburton, Buddy Hield, and Tristan Thompson. Now, for the Pacers, I say this is a win. This is a win for the Pacers. But I have to ask, why on earth would the Sacramento Kings let go of Tyrese Halliburton and Buddy Hield? I understand Tristan Thompson. He's pretty much expendable. But it's like, I just don't understand, why would you let those two young players go? Like, that's what confuses me about this deal. And then for Sacramento to take Sabonis, Jeremy Lamb, and Justin Holiday, I don't understand where's the direction they're going. So this trade really does confuse me, and I'm gonna give the Pacers a B plus because of the additions of Tyrese Halliburton and Buddy Hield. But I'm gonna give the Sacramento Kings, I'm giving them close to a D to a C minus, because you let go of two young great pieces to get Domantas Sabonis, basically. And when you already let go of somebody like Marvin Bagley, he's like, I don't know what direction the Sacramento Kings are going. As a matter of fact, we haven't known what direction they've been going in for more than a decade. So that's just, I don't know what direction the Kings are trying to go through. The Indiana Pacers are clearly trying to rebuild, and this clearly benefits building a system with around Miles Turner, because now you're surrounding him with more shooters and more young players. So this benefits more the Pacers than anything else. The next deal, we got the Portland Trail Blazers and the New Orleans Pelicans. This trade literally happened after I uploaded my previous episode, which was the CJ McCollum trade, which New Orleans receives CJ McCollum, Larry Nance Jr., and Tony Snell. And Portland receives Josh Hart and Thomas Satoransky and Nickeil Alexander Walker. I don't know who this person is. And a protected 2022 first-round pick and 2 future second-round picks. Again, I'm going to say it right now, Portland, I don't know what they're doing. They say they're going to build a team around Damian Lillard, but now is it you're trying to strictly build dependently on Damian Lillard? I have no idea what they're doing. We just got to see at this point what the Portland front office is going to do at this point, man. Because to let go of somebody like CJ McCollum, that's huge. And for New Orleans, you got another person that could create their own shot and put the ball on the floor, and Brandon Ingram is not the only one anymore. So, and then you get a guy like Larry Nance, which I would say they need because of the absence of Zion Williamson. So, New Orleans, they're not completely dead in the water. This is not a monster move, but it's a step in the right direction. And Tony Snell, I don't know what you're going to get out of him, because he's had multiple games where he just does absolutely nothing but straight cardio, because he'll just be running up and down the floor. But from what I've seen, this is a better step and there's a better step in the right direction. So let's see how New Orleans builds on from here out, because the fact that they got CJ McCollum, that's a stunner to me. I already went over the Karis LeVert trade. I believe. Okay, here we go. The next trade, a 3-team trade between the Portland Trail Blazers, the San Antonio Spurs, and the Utah Jazz. The Portland Trail Blazers send Thomas Satoransky to the San Antonio Spurs. The Utah Jazz send Joe Ingles, Elijah Hughes, and a second-round pick to the Portland Trail Blazers. And in return, Utah receives Nickeil Alexander Walker and Juancho Hernan Gomez. The Utah Jazz the Utah Jazz are always going to be somewhat solid when it comes, and they've done a better job when it comes to having when it comes to having pieces that other people just don't want. And getting a guy like Nickeil Alexander-Walker who has a quick trigger, he's ready to shoot, he's going to be a good bench piece. I like that move, and Hernan Gomez, it just gives them more depth. And Thomas Satoransky for the San Antonio Spurs, he just looks like he fits that system. I think that it's I just think these moves are just a little odd. And for Portland to take Joe Ingles and Elijah Hughes, I don't know about that, especially since Joe Ingles has a season-ending injury. Again, it's like, what is Portland planning on doing? I just don't know. So I would give these moves. I would give Portland a D for this trade. I'll give San Antonio maybe a C, and the Utah Jazz, I'll give them a C plus because it's just adding more depth, but it's not crazy. But again, it's like, what more can Utah possibly do? It's like, what more can they do? Um, I'm not even gonna. I'm not gonna bother with the Boston Celtics and Orlando Magic deal with Bobo and PJ Dozier. I'm not even gonna bother with that because I don't even think that's worth mentioning, even though I just did. But the Boston Celtics trading away. No, yes, the Boston Celtics traded Josh Richardson to the San Antonio Spurs for Derek White. That's a huge pickup for Boston. Boston needed another shooter because it's just Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown and a bunch of role pieces. I know you got Marcus Smart, you got Al Horford, you have somewhat other guys. I believe Romeo Langford was also involved in this deal, but to me, you get a guy like Derek White. I liked him in San Antonio, and to me that's a big move that's a good move for Boston. I like that move. So I would give Boston a B, and I'll also give San Antonio a B because Josh Richardson, I believe in the correct system, could be used quite well. He's a good perimeter defender. He's an okay three-point shooter. I remember his days on the Miami Heat. I actually liked Josh Richardson, so I have pretty much of a high opinion of Josh Richardson, but to each his own. Hopefully in San Antonio, he's pushed in the right direction and he's able to work in a better system in San Antonio. I believe he'll be a little more disciplined in that. The Indiana Pacers and the Phoenix Suns. The Phoenix Suns get back Torrey Craig, and the Indiana Pacers receive Jalen Smith and a future second round pick. Torrey Craig going back to the Suns is actually huge in my opinion because he's already used to that system. He was part of that team that made the finals run. He's a good perimeter defender. He'll take on the toughest assignments, and it just to me makes Phoenix that much better because Phoenix as is already has a lot of firepower, and when you got a guy like Torrey Craig who could run the floor, he doesn't need the ball, and he'll take on the toughest assignment if he has to. And that to me just gives Phoenix more of a chance of going all the way, especially when you have to deal with a team like the Golden State Warriors, who I believe might just be the only team that's in your way. Because the Western Conference to me is looking, it really does look like it does look like a two-team race compared to the East. The Charlotte Hornets and the Washington Wizards. The Charlotte Hornets receive Montrezl Harrell, and the Washington Wizards receive Vernon Carey and Ish Smith. Again, the Wizards, they're building towards the future, and they got somewhat of a foundation going on, especially with the addition of Kristaps Porzingis, and you got guys like Kyle Kuzma and KCP. Now losing Montrezl Harrell, I don't think it's such a big loss because Montrezl Harrell, he's that enforcer, but then it's the size issue that he has that he can't deal with certain bigs because of how much smaller he is against certain bigs. And it's like, so I think in that Charlotte Hornets system, where I believe with LaMelo Ball, with Miles Bridges, with PJ Washington, with Terry Rozier, with Gordon Hayward, I think they'll be able to utilize Montrezl Harrell a lot more because they somewhat run a small lineup as is. So again, I could be very wrong about that. That could be that could really come back to haunt me if I'm wrong about that. So don't quote me on that. I'm just saying that's just my personal opinion. And the last trade I'm just gonna go over is the Boston Celtics are trading Dennis Schroeder, Ennis Freedom, and Bruno Fernando for Daniel Tice. And to me, I don't know why Boston did this move. I get it; they want to get rid of Dennis Schroeder, and they just didn't feel like that Dennis Schroeder was living up to wanting to earn a bigger contract because he took a small contract.
We got some non-believers out there.
Make believers out of non-believers. Make believers out the overseers. Make them bow down.